Hey, welcome back, IB International Economics students. This video lecture today, we are going over the consequences and solutions to current account deficits. Now, in our previous videos, we have gone over the current and financial account, what they are and what they include. So, quick recap: a current account basically measures the import and export of goods, of services, of remitted funds, interests, investments, and gifts. Okay, and by far the largest part of the current account deficit or a surplus is in the form of goods and trade. So in a current account deficit, as seen in UK and America and France and most countries, in most developed countries like that, they have a heavily imported country. For example, America imports a lot more goods than they export, specifically from China and for low-cost manufacturing countries such as China or India. And the consequences are threefold, okay? The first one is with this account deficit, Americans are importing more goods than they export. That means there is a lower aggregate demand for domestically produced goods, which means, and remember our GDP calculations, which is exports minus imports. When imports are greater than exports, aggregate demand is less than 82. So 82 is less than 81. So that's the first one. It negatively affects the GDP. Negatively affects the economic activity within a country, seeing as how the domestic consumers are not profiting and the domestic consumers are not, and the international people, international producers are actually benefiting from this. So lower aggregate demand, given exports are greater than imports. Another thing is increased debt. What happens when the money outflows from America? Of course, American banks and American governments give treasury bonds. They issue debt that foreign companies and foreign governments can buy in order to balance the accounts, in order to balance the financial accounts to match the current account. Now, in order to do that, they increase their debt, and by increasing their debt, the deficit is increased. Now, another major thing is the devaluation of the currency. When every time a country trades, for example, when every time America wants to buy Chinese goods, America has to exchange American dollars into Chinese yen in order to buy Chinese goods, because Chinese manufacturers do not want American dollars. Chinese manufacturers want Chinese yen because that's their home and useful currency. So by having long-term current account deficits, we also have the devaluation of the currency. So these are some consequences. Now, what are some other additional consequences that some people may talk about very often? For example, it's the outflow of cash and money into foreign governments. Now, why may the consequences of a current account deficit be good, actually, instead of having such negative consequences as most politicians, or specifically conservative politicians, would like to make you believe? Now, when we have a current account deficit, money is leaving the country. Okay, and that may be good because it reduces the inflation rate. Okay, inflation will be really high when there is high supply of money and low supply of goods. However, with having current account deficits, we have high supply of goods and lower supply of money because the money gets flown out to other countries. Or in the case of America, it goes to China. And this is actually good for America because it decreases the inflation rate because money flows out of America. So this may be another macroeconomic objectives that is reached when the current account has a deficit. Now, what are some solutions to current account deficits? Now, the first one is the expenditure reduction policies, okay, which is reducing aggregate demand, thereby reducing import demand. Now, this is a very effective means. However, it has strong conflicts of objectives and conflicts of interest, since one of the macroeconomics objectives is for governments to decrease income, to maximize aggregate demand in order to boost economic growth. However, by decreasing aggregate demand, the economy does not grow; the economy actually shrinks. So thereby, this has a conflict of interest. Now, the third one is expenditure switching policies, which is having weaker exchange rates. Now, weaker exchange rates makes domestic products more desirable, while making foreign products more undesirable. However, this may be another conflict of objectives because countries may not want to lower their exchange rate. Now, one of the most commonly used is protectionist policies in order to combat the current account deficit. Now, what do I refer by this? Once again, so we have tariffs, which are import taxes. We have quotas, which are physical limits of how much a product may be imported. And we also have trade restrictions such as embargoes and which countries you cannot trade goods at. For example, Chinese manufactured 5G products cannot be sold in America. Once again, these are what we call trade restrictions. And we have actually made a video on trade restrictions, so you can refer to that. So I hope this video is helpful in actually going over the consequences and solutions, potential solutions to fix current account deficits. So if it is, leave a like, subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.